I would like to invite to the floor the panelists of our panel discussion, MythBusters SatComs Reality Check. It will be a rapid-fire debate separating marketing hype from technical reality in satellite communications. Panelists will be challenged to defend their tech claims against industry friction. The moderator is Captain Rohit Tandon from FML Shipmanagement in Cyprus, David Tropp, Yvonne Tsanos, General Manager from Azimuth Radio Technologies, Angelos Demetiou, IT Manager of RaytecDOT, and Sergey Popravko, Head of ESG Mastermind Shipmanagement.
Good morning to our colleagues and all the distinguished guests. Welcome to MythBusters Maritime Connectivity Reality Check. Through our discussions today, we are going to walk through industry claims and promises which have been made for last 10 years or so, as David shown in slides. And we will uncover what really works at sea, where connectivity meets operational reality, crew welfare, and regulatory complexity, which we are in today's world. So we will explore three things. Number one, we will be exploring the unlimited myth, unlimited data myth, the reality of plug-and-play installations, and the third, truth behind global coverage. The objectivity today is simple: separate what is being promised and what actually works at sea. We have very, very high experienced panelists here who are experienced professionals, technical experts, and commercial decision makers in our panel. So let me introduce you to all. Our first panelist, as you have just seen, is David Tropp. He's a Vice President of KVH, coming from Denmark. So please give a big round of applause to him, please. Second panelist is Yvonne Tsanos. She is General Manager from Azimuth Radio Tech. Third is Angelos Demetiou. He's IT Manager from RaytecDOT. Fourth, but last but not the least, Captain Sergey Popravko. He is ESG Head in Mastermind. So let me start straight with our first panelist, David. So let's address the elephant in the room. Very nice presentation which you ran, seamless connectivity, a lot of bandwidth, and things are moving from GEO to LEO. Oh, GEO to LEO. Providers like KVH, Inmarsat, Starlink, now I just learned Wormweb and Amazon coming up, promote very high speed and even unlimited packages. What are the most commonly sold speed tiers today, and what do vessels actually get in reality?
You could say the by far most popular service at the moment is Starlink. You can say everybody is adding Starlink to their vessels. So by that, the most popular speed becomes Starlink's speed, which is up to 400 megabits per second. But the question is then, what do they combine it with? Because if you're on a vessel, you don't want to be relying on just one carrier. So you always have another or maybe two other carriers to rely on. And those typically can be either VSAT or OneWeb and 5G. And for VSAT and OneWeb, you will have typically maybe 50 megabits per second as your backup speed. And 5G is of course only covering the coastal areas, but again you will have speeds comparable to Starlink service. So the second part of your question is, what do people actually get? It's a little bit difficult to respond to, because Starlink is not at habit of disclosing that kind of data. They don't have a fair use policy as such, other than they have 99.95 availability. But anecdotally, we know that people get at least 200 most of the time, 200 megabits per second, sometimes more, sometimes less. There are some well-known hotspots, and obviously those are the usual places where ships are dense, such as Miami, where you have a lot of cruise industry and a lot of yachting industry that sucks a lot of data. But you also have the Strait of Malacca, with ships passing in high numbers. And of course, other spots, hotspots like the North Sea, the English Channel, and places like that. On land, it's another matter where some of the big city areas are very congested already. But at sea, those are the things we see.
Okay, that's great. So as you can see, David presented the industry is moving from CIR to MIR, right? The committed data to maximum information data. And as he rightly mentioned, 400 megabyte, eventually at some places you are getting as low as 50, some places none. We will see in the discussion further. But never mind, you just now mentioned about fair use policies. So for our audience, if you can let us know where exactly the fair use policies kick in.
That's very variable from operator to operator. As I mentioned, Starlink doesn't have any published fair use policy or fair access policy that tells you who gets priority. They say everybody has the same priority, so you would expect that that's the truth. And for VSAT networks, it's the traditional basis of CIR and MIR. You make sure people always have their CIR, but if there's room available, they get access to the MIR speeds.
Very nice. So I think it's fair to say, listening to you, is what is being sold maximum is really not actually there at sea, right? Moving on, Yvonne.
I wouldn't say it's not there. It's there,
okay.
But it's not always there.
Okay, not always there. So thank you for that, David. Moving on with Yvonne. Yvonne, let's move from promises to reality on board, especially the ones which are at sea, and the installations which are there. Older versions ships are 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years old ships as well. Now, we have been listening in the industry, plug and play is a phrase that you will see everywhere, and let us uncover the reality of this phrase. When do you install modern SatCom systems on board for older ships, say 10 to 15 years old installations? Does this plug and play really exist?
Oh, thank you for the question, Rohit. Plug and play does exist. It's a very appealing concept. We at Azimuth, with the older aged vessels, we have experienced a plug and play situation, because once the providers, they provide the equipment, going on board can be a different reality. However, yes, it can be challenging. We do overcome it, and the reason is there are legacy systems, aged cabling, connectivity. The compatibility is quite different once you go on board. So there has to be better communication between the providers, the stakeholders, the owners, the operators. There are many factors that come into play. It's not always easy, but we as a company, we do overcome these challenges.
So thank you for that, being honest there, Yvonne. So instead of, should I say plug and play, should we say plug, configure, troubleshoot, and pray? Can I say that?
For the older vessels, it does happen.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Unfortunately.
Thank you for being honest. Thank you so much. Moving on to our next panelist, Angelos. We also hear about so-called global coverage, right? Now, so we keep hearing global coverage in our day-to-day operations. Can you give us some specific examples where the connectivity breaks down in ocean or in ports?
Yes, thank you for the question. Global connectivity, that's a little bit of a myth, as the panel is about, right? In reality, there is one word that can stop this global connectivity. It's called geopolitics.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the majority of the holes on the Earth where the data is not available, I mean, not highly available, let's say, are all because of politics, of country decisions, of wars, of imminent threats that either cause a country to choose that I don't want it, or a war that needs to block it in order not to be used for another purpose other than that it's supposed to be used. So we have plenty of areas where geopolitics like
India.
Russia, India, China, and so on. But we do have also places where the war, like in the Gulf, in Israel, and so on, are being blocked. So although the services could be online, unfortunately, it's blocked through the geopolitics decisions at the area. In some areas, you don't even have a second connectivity as well. Israel is in a location, and then you get a backup being, let's say, a VSAT, which also cannot perform because GPS is blocked or the area is so packed from the usage due to the unavailability, let's say, of the LEOs. So eventually you are not able to use the VSAT for most of the reasons that you want to use it. The crew, for instance, will not be able to use it. Business use, cloud services and everything, latency goes up, speed goes down, and then there's not much. The 5G also sometimes in the area you get connections through your global, let's say, SIM card, which are not working in some countries or are more expensive in some countries which are in those locations. So all in all, the term global connectivity is turning into a multiple connectivity that you have to cater for in order to get that global connectivity feeling.
Yeah, fair enough. So basically, if you see, you talk about China, you talk about India, you talk about Israel, Russia, and geopolitical reasons. Now, I believe we all know that when the ships are in India or China, they have to keep their satellite communications off. So,
correct.
What are the alternatives our seafarers have? Because what we see in the presentations are all very rosy, you know, that we have seamless connectivity. And what happened, majority of the import is taking place in big nations like India and China, where SatComs are off.
Yeah. So right now we see a big shift that a lot of countries are trying to talk. A lot of suppliers are trying to talk with them. So for instance, I think Starlink announced that they are building a lander station in India for Starlink that might give control accessibility to the area. So we hope that that's the end of that and we will get connectivity in the area. I'm not sure if Pakistan will allow it as well. In China, they are rolling their own less constellation. Not sure how it will work and where it will be provided, but I guess for that we are years off. But in India, I think this is the worst case scenario. In China, you would be able to get a local SIM, you would be able to get an international package of some sort, although you get very heavy VSAT usage, where actually half the things don't work. But in India, you have to be either very lucky to be with a provider that has an agreement with India and Pakistan, or you're offline, or you have to switch off your Iridium, because Iridium must be off due to regulations, sometimes the FPV, depends on how lucky or how unlucky you are in the position you are, and then sometimes the vessels are too far out for 5G.
So these are the ports, territorial waters. What about, do we have blind spots in oceans?
Well, from experience, we have seen some areas where you get intermittent connection, like close to South Africa. We got a few vessels complaining about both Starlink and VSAT for some reason. We don't know why, but it's turning into a pattern. We're looking into why, precisely why. We don't know. Very low speeds, or it might be the position, it might be the latency, it might be some interference, we don't know.
Arctic area?
Areas where you have high mountains, like in Norway, sometimes you get these connections, but due to the speed, for the crew, it doesn't matter. Unless you're running a real online cloud service, in those areas, you're not affected greatly. Okay, there's not so many satellites going. There are some blind spots when the satellites are moving and you're getting the blind spot there, but it's mainly also the sense of the fjords there, where you have high mountains on one and on the other side, and you're just passing through. But in those cases where vessels are there frequently, you have other services like 5G or IceNet or some other services that you could
So we have to rely on the
register on.
alternatives, especially when you talk about the Arctic, Antarctic, like you mentioned about south of South Africa. There are many areas, even Pacific areas we have come across. So we really have to go back to, so we have to keep on the ships 2 or 3 systems, not one.
Correct.
Rohit, sorry to interrupt. I would like to carry on from what Angelos has said, simply because we as a company, we have so many inquiries from our clients for lack of connectivity, especially in these regions that Angelos has said, India, China, and they want us to troubleshoot.
Yeah.
And we simply cannot.
Yeah.
When we check with our providers, the services are there, the connection is not. And this is creating an issue for the crew. Reporting requirements, business requirements, as Angelos said. We cannot have these blind spots. Vessels need to be connected 24/7, 365. And we need to be able to open the floor of discussions and negotiations with governments to take action.
So basically, we are in tandem to say that global coverage is still a myth?
Yes.
Okay, so we go on. So fair, so our...
David is shaking his head.
I'm saying it's improving.
It's
Maybe
improving.
it's a myth that it's totally global, but it's improving.
That's good, that's good.
So India is getting easier. VSAT is allowed. OneWeb is tolerated and very close to being allowed. In China, OneWeb is actually working, but it's not allowed. But Starlink is shut down completely.
And you didn't mention Amazon. And you didn't
Amazon, nobody knows really
exactly.
how far
And
they
we've
are.
been hearing about Amazon having a service availability for the last couple of years already.
Yeah.
When it will materialize is another story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as I mentioned, for global maritime, we are probably well into 27.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yet to wait. Fair. Thank you being honest, our panelists. Let's move on to Captain Sergey. Captain Sergey, from your perspective as an operator, how big is the gap between what providers promise and what vessels actually experiencing?
Right. I think I have not much to add to what's been presented and already discussed. Look, we have multiple layers to provide our, as we said, 24/7 availability and getting connected, ships not connected for 24 hours. Mostly of what we discuss here is about crew well-being, crew welfare. Operationally, we now don't experience any issues, or probably because I've been long enough in the industry and I can compare with what we were 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. Being involved in ship operations, I feel quite comfortable. So, but what I hear here is more about crew, how they got connected. From the operational point of view, of course, we can experience these gaps from what was actually agreed with the provider when a ship approaching the congested area, busy areas, right? We need to agree a cargo plan. We all the time communicating with the master, sending back and forth, agreeing on cargo storage plan. At the same time, we have crew, and we may expect waiting inspection in the port, which also requires a lot of information to be sent. So this is when we see that communication may slow down. However, as I said, from the operational perspectives, we don't see much gaps in what was promised, at least if you manage it and you understand limitations. And this is what we need from our providers, to be honest with us and responsive and adjustable, because sometimes you buy a package and your provider became very rigorous, very strict. So what we need their support and ready to hear us and adjust to our particular needs. Specifically, if our ships involved in trading in the areas which you highlighted may not be so well connected. Otherwise, as I said, from the operational perspective, we are.
So basically, you are connecting it, and I can relate it myself. You have been connecting it for last 30, 40 years back when we were on the didda communication to today's communication from Geo to Leo. Do you really feel that the providers are overselling the product, or is it a companies who are, or the crew who are over expecting it?
Again, it's been discussed already. It's like a promise: unlimited internet, global coverage. From perhaps a mature perspective, people may take it as is, but professionals must understand limitations, specifically due to congestions or not having the coverage of satellite. But as I said, we have multiple layer sources for communication, so I don't see an issue. And what we've seen from the presentations, more things coming. We really have vessel moving to another sort of mode of operations, when the information would be then transmitted mostly automatically, when we still have to, crew still have to produce a lot of manual reports now. But what I see with the progress in communication, we may release crew from dull paperwork, manual paperwork.
Isn't that the big gap right now that, sorry, this is digressing a little bit, that we all talk about digitalization and digital transformation, but we're not really seeing the transformation, we're just seeing the digitalization. The crew still needs to do all the same work, but now they do it in software.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not been transformed to being a process that is driven autonomously.
Yeah, but what we discussed, I think, with colleagues in Colorado, that with introducing the sensors, gauges, vibration meters, flow meters, which can then broadcast information and release crew from filling these numerous forms, ticking box exercises. And especially for the ships arriving or departure, when they have to fill many checklists and forms.
Yeah. I want to also add on, because Sergey, you mentioned about the connectivity and the providers having certain packages available. Providers are very upfront with what is available. They give the operator, the owner, the option to select whether it's 50 gigabyte, 200 gigabyte, and it depends on the operator, the owner, how they want to disperse that on board the vessel. how much they want the crew to have access, whether they will charge the crew, whether they will accommodate the cost themselves. We, as a company, we see some of our clients absorbing all of the cost. We see some of our clients charging 50% of that cost to the crew.
Yeah.
We see stringent monitoring and control, especially, I can give you an example. I have one client, they monitor every crew member on board, the times that they're using the data or the facility to connect, and they can see, as an example, Cookie, he's supposed to be preparing the food, but they see his data usage is going up and up and up. You know, the client decides, the providers provide the service, the client decides what size package. We recently had a takeover, and the client wanted 50 gigabytes. Within 8 days, they upgraded to 200 gigabytes. And another 2 days later, they said, no, I think we have to go to 1 terabyte. And of course, the cost, this is the pain point. It's the cost. How do they address the cost?
Still talking about cost for communication. after
Yes.
so many years.
Yes. Sadly, Adoni, yes.
Maybe
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
we all know that it's 1 or 2% of the running expenses of the vessel, and are still talking about the
Yeah.
$100 that they're paying now.
Yes,
Unfortunately,
yes.
I agree with
This is
Yvonne.
a reality. This is not a myth.
Yeah,
I
this
I think the situation is that the budgets haven't changed. Just because you're getting much faster and much more data, you're still spending the same money. So you're wanting to spend, I don't know, depending on the owner and the type of vessel, somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 or $3,000, and that hasn't changed. They'll still spend the same.
I think it
Now
is-
they'll get a lot more and a lot faster.
I think it is
But it's
being
the same budget.
the cost is being regulated. If you see, whether you are running a dry ships or a wet ships, through the right ship coming in place and SIRE 2.0, there's a one particular question for crew welfare section itself, and then one very important question apart from food and water is internet.
Connectivity.
Whether the internet provider, the company is providing you free of charge, not a single dollar charge. Now, of course, if you just say yes, yes, if the crew and captains are saying yes, it is yes. But then reality, we have to see that it is really being provided. No more now we have to charge to the crew for any internet on board. Now, what operators or the management companies or the owners take, the packages is different. That is not being regulated. But cost is being driven by the industry players that it has to be free. Since we are talking about... Yeah,
if I may, Yvonne is actually right. We have, I mean, we work for a managed company. We do the communication for many clients, and we do see vessels where they put 50 and 200 gigabytes for a crew of 24 people. So yes, it's not a big cost. I agree with Adonis, because if it's $1,000 for 25 guys on board, and the cost is also absorbed by the regulations, by the actual data that you're supposed to give to the crew and all this stuff, it should be a no-brainer. But unfortunately, we find ourselves as either provider or a manager or a crew manager trying to persuade people, owners, that yeah, it's worth this extra $400 a month. It's worth this extra $600 because your crew will be happier. They will do a better job. We, as a manager, will be able to support your logistics better. We, as an IT provider, will be able to do your IT better. But unfortunately, we find ourselves, even in 2026, even with all the connectivity options, that we have to explain ourselves and we have to get approval for. And in some cases, we don't. But going back to Petkov's answer, and Yvonne's as well, yes, also regulation becomes a problem, because if you give all this data and you don't control the time when the crew is spending, can become a liability, can become a problem if they're not resting because they're talking to their girlfriend, they are on the internet while on the bridge, you don't control properly the internet on the bridge. So all this bandwidth that you get, all this freedom that you get has to have some limits. Then those regulations, those controls have to be put in place.
Okay,
So,
fair enough. Thank you. So yeah, you're right, Angelos. But remember one thing: when we say 50 gigabyte or 100 or 1 terabyte, in the initially only David mentioned, I have written here. He has written, if it is Starlink giving 400 megabits, some places you will get only 50. So no matter what you take, 50, 100, 1 terabyte, what exactly, first of all, the coverage, and second, we talk about the data. Is that data available on the ship? Let it be for operations, for business purpose, or for the crew.
Yeah.
Now, since we talk about crew, the last, before I open the question for the floor, we have been talking about there's a challenges, right, with respect to the, we talk about the taking into consideration of cost, coverage, unlimited data. How about the crew? Because ultimately, who is using this crew, apart from the business? So how do connectivity limitations actually affect our crew behaviors and well-being on board the vessel? If any
Well,
take
as
on that?
Angelos said, you know, it does impact them because, let's say they just finished their shift. Many of them want to go to their cab, and it can affect them in terms of isolation. It can affect them in terms of the next shift. They have fatigue because they do spend time through connecting with their loved ones or their country of origin or family members. You know, we, shoreside, we take a lot of things for granted. If I don't have internet access, I can go crazy at the weekend.
Panic.
Yep.
You think, oh, I don't have connectivity. Can you imagine the crew, months on end, out at sea? This is something we have to supply to them. They have to be able to have access. However, it has to be in a controlled environment.
Regulated.
I would say that there are technological solutions today that can help
Yes.
owners manage this. It doesn't have to be a tight management regime. You can actually have computers or network management devices take care of allocations on a daily or weekly or monthly basis, so it doesn't have to be the master taking care of it. You can even have free data allocated from the shipping company, plus like a paywall system, so the crew can buy more data for themselves when they want to. It can actually be managed very smoothly, so there's no extra administration for the ship.
Yeah, there are restrictions for to avoid the fatigue. The providers have been providing the restrictions, like, you know, you cannot use 4 hours at a stretch for that matter. Let it be unlimited thing which is being given. Okay.
Giving unlimited, though, Rohit, you are also exposing yourself to other potential threats in terms of cybersecurity.
Yeah, that we will
are
cover
gonna
it.
talk
Yeah,
later
that we will
on
Yes.
talk.
But, what about the geopolitical situation now we have? Do you have any ships in that area? Have any one of you, David, with KVH, any ships on in this
Straits of
area?
Hormuz.
And how is the crew dealing with the situation there? I mean,
Yeah.
are they totally in black, or
No, we haven't been specifically.
or any one of you that?
But we had a couple of vessels who wanted to very quickly install OneWeb because they were in an area where Starlink wasn't available inside the Gulf. So that was lucky we had people in the Middle East with systems in stock.
Okay,
because they faced a long period of waiting there.
Yeah,
And they wanted
because
to do
most of
something
the
for
ships
crew.
now which are trapped in Persian Gulf, majority of them in the territorial waters. They are just waiting, cannot come out. In that case, we have been providing them, like couple of ships are stuck. We have provided them 5G, in a sense, the local network. That is what, because Starlink is not available there. So that is one measure which has been taken, especially in that area. Rest of the areas, if you look at geopolitical, when we talk about China and India has been always their SatCom closing, so that system is set. Okay, so let's open. Yeah.
Adoni, you know, I watched this interview of the IMO Secretary General recently with one of the crew members, and unfortunately they had to use the stars for their passage. How true, but the
sextant, you mean?
yes, the
Yeah,
sextant, you know, and I think in the 21st century We shouldn't have to rely on this kind of old traditional equipment. Crew are on board the vessel to serve the world economy, demand and supply. They should not be penalized. They should not be penalized by not having connectivity. And the current situation, in my opinion, is totally unacceptable. And governments must be in continuous dialogue to find a resolution.
Especially now when we are talking about SatCom and connectivity, think about navigation part, how dangerous it is for the ships, even passing Gulf of Aden. Strait of Hormuz in any case closed now, but I have been seeing for last 2 years or so, the Gulf of Aden, and the Red Sea southern part, a lot of jamming. So if the ships transit, our ships have transited, they don't get any connectivity when it comes to navigation with respect to SATC is off, SATCOM nowhere, GPS multiple. So now we started connecting them multi-constellation GPS that we have. So maybe out of 7 or 8 constellation, 1 they get in to get the position. So that is very strange position, I must say. This is not easy for our seafarers who are at sea, for sure. Okay, let's open the floor for the questions to our panelists. If any questions, please raise the hand. Yeah.
Good morning. A quick question. Considering the SOLAS changes in 2028 from AIS to VDES, how does this discussion relate to that?
Okay, so AIS to VTS you said. Any thoughts on 2028? I don't think we have gone that far, right?
No.
Yeah, we haven't. We haven't gone through that far. Probably the next one will catch up. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Any other questions, please?
I would like to ask regarding because when we were discussing this before the event, we talked about also the troubleshooting on board. You know, in my opinion, service providers like Azimuth and some of my peers here in the room, we don't believe, and I'm sure my peers will agree with me, we don't believe it is the responsibility of the crew to provide troubleshooting.
Yep.
It is the responsibility of us as service providers and the connectivity providers to have structure in place for reliable remote support. And I recall a discussion that we had as well, Rohit, that you mentioned about consideration for an electronic engineer on board the vessel. Maybe you want to raise
No,
this
that's fine,
with
that's
us.
fine. I mean, what Yvonne is bringing up here is, so crew are trained for various things on board, yes, but they are not still IT engineers, neither captain nor the crew. Now, when we take over a ship, and as we mentioned with Yvonne, 10, 15 years old ship, we have taken over their legacy coming from the different installations, and now high-tech providers are like this who are giving the connectivity. The compatibility issue comes, and we leave it. We just take over, we put the IT engineer for a day, whatever he could sort, get down, ship sails. Ship sails, it is always struggling. Those new crew, and I think Angelos will agree, new crew are, especially like Master Chief here, is struggling until early morning 2 a.m. to try and troubleshoot something. So they're like company like Azimuth, like Yvonne is saying that even the remote monitoring can assist. Of course, it's not so easy. I would say it is again time consuming for the crew because somebody has to do remote monitoring while being provided support, somebody has to do on board. Okay.
Excuse me, I mean, just once we touch upon this, of course, we need to bear in mind cost effectiveness by appointing placing extra hands on the ship. But I think we're approaching with new with all these changes in communications and satellite applications to the ships, we need to reconsider STCW requirements. And perhaps it should be part of the electrical engineers training to be capable to do certain troubleshooting. However, because crew cannot interfere much because of the license, because of the
Maker approvals.
yeah, so they are not qualified for that. So we still have to heavily rely on the shore service.
Okay, for that, from where we are coming is, basically we were talking about electronic engineer on board. Because if you look at, whoever the operators in the room will rely that too many equipments, high-tech, our crew are not able to solve. For everything, for almost everything, we need an engineer in the port. Technician so-called, right?
Yeah.
Too much money drained, but we are not tracking it. Once somebody track, even the cost of electronic engineer of $5,000 will worth. That engineer, electronic engineer, if the company decides or the owner decides, can be trained easily by different makers to the ships they are going. If a company of, like big company like us, we have so many ships, if we have different makers, we have been training ACDIS for various, we have been training ballast water treatment for various makers. Why not? For all this we can. So that is step 2 seen. Okay, I have rapid fire round.
Can I just ask?
Another question.
Okay.
Finally.
Kalimera, excellent panel. I'm very happy that I attended at the end of the day. Let me be the devil's advocate and say, do we want the crew to have sufficient internet connection? And how much do we want them to have? I mean, if we see it from the perspective of the crew, yes, I agree that they need to have a certain amount. I will remind Rohit a few years back when we were sitting on a panel and we said, is it against us or is it for us? Is it a pro or a con for internet to be in a full length as we have ashore? And then at the same time, if we see it from the side of the ship owner or the ship manager, where do we require the least and the most of the internet connection, for the business as such or for the crew?
No, thank you. Thank you for a lovely question.
Great question.
Yes.
Thank you, Barbara.
Angelos?
If I may jump in, yes, the majority of the data, I believe something, from my experience at least, something ranging from 85 to 90% is crew data. Especially when you leave the vessel, if you give them an option to buy more data than just give them a free amount of data, then it can range up to 95% of the data.
Yeah, so the question here is about pros and cons of having connectivity on board.
Yeah.
So there have been case studies where connectivity is a lot on the ship. You have a real-time, so-called, as we say, real-time information coming out at sea, and you can't help it. I myself, being a background of a seafarer, can relate to it very well, because your family member saying, I'm going to hospital, I'm getting admitted, and you can't do anything. And then she or he or parents or wife is admitted, and you don't know what to do. And these are one aspect. The other aspect is somebody panelists bring up about girlfriend, because all these seafarers are young. They have not hardly married. So when they see something in today's Instagram, Facebook and all, guys have been jumping overboard. So that is where it was coming with. Okay, I have Adonis has put a rapid fire round also for me. So I have very quick question, one-liner, please. Sorry, that's better.
Good morning, Aris Constantino, Shipping Deputy Ministry. I was very intrigued by my good friend Barbara, and I usually stir things up.
Great.
Yes, I know you know, given the excellent panelists, and I'm gonna step up and use Barbara's question and extend that. How about shore personnel in the office? Where is the limitation, including me, all of us in here? What happens with data during working hours, connectivity, how you monitor and harness that compared to Barbara's question? Because at the end of the line, crew members have their office on board, and we have our working environment ashore. And some, or even most of us in here, used to be on that working environment before we coming ashore and taking part into this. Thank you.
Can we clarify one thing though? We're talking about
SatComs.
office users going on board. How do we give them
Both.
access on board or also in the office?
Both marine superintendents, technical superintendents, attending shipyards, internal audits, surveys, inspection, dry docks, everything, the whole package.
Now you open up
Good
a little
question.
bit of
Good question.
Pandora's
good
box.
question, very good question. There is the
Adonis will
problem.
not like me anymore because we're going to
No. I agree with you because I'm one of them, right?
Yeah.
So when I go on board the vessels, I need connectivity to do my work because I don't manage only that vessel. The superintendent doesn't manage only the vessel he's on. He's probably dealing with cases from a lot of vessels, a lot of places, reports and all this stuff. So we do find ourselves having the same problems the crew have. We are on board in China and we don't have Starlink. We are on board in Fujairah and we don't have Starlink. We are on board in anywhere and we don't have connectivity. We end up getting our 4G, our Iralo or any other 4G or 5G roaming solution, and we hope that that works sufficiently for us to do our work. Which in many cases, especially in China where the VPNs and all this stuff are blocked, are not supported. Now, within the office is a different ballgame. You have the opposite effect. You need to be able to limit the guys to what they were supposed to do. You were supposed to control cybersecurity more than the vessel, because on the vessel you have some limited connectivity, some controls that are more extreme than the vessel, allowing you only for specific access in some cases, or in separate networks. So where do you get the balance and how do you control them correctly depends on two different factors and two different IT departments usually. So
I can say the one-line answer is the shore staff yet to be regulated. That's all I can say.
Yeah,
okay, fair enough.
Sorry,
we have
but again, it depends on the mission.
Correct.
Okay, so we have almost concluded. If we talk about this panel, I can say, which I have written here, connectivity at sea is improving rapidly, but it's not a magic. There are trade-offs, limitations, geopolitical conditions. The winner in this space, I would say, is not over-promising, but being transparent. So on that note, let us thank all our panelists and give a big round of applause to them.